Good morning, YouTube. I apologize for the lack of uploads recently, but that's because there was nothing really to post about. But now, I have something really worth posting about. This is my most recent acquisition. It is a 3/4 inch scale, 3.5 inch gauge, Bassett-Lowke, London Northwestern Railways, Claughton Class 460. Coal-fired, and obviously live steam. This engine was built in the 20s. I had two very, very good and very talented friends of mine do a frame-off restoration on this mechanical marvel. And now this is the fruit of their labor, and I cannot be more pleased. This engine is truly astounding, and this video does not do it justice. The quality of the build and of the restoration is second to none. This is a true 4-cylinder Claughton. I'll get my flashlight on here. There we go. You can see the inside motion work. Internal cranks, connecting rods, and crossheads. This engine has pretty much everything a full-sized engine did. Additional features include steam-operated cylinder drains, even, which you can see the control box for underneath. The steam line comes from the cab and operates a shuttle piston inside, so when you give it steam from the cab, the valve is shut because the steam pressure is holding it shut, and then when you close the steam valve in the cab, the shuttle is relieved of that pressure, and it allows the cylinder drain cocks to open. So, open is shut, open is shut, close is open. It's kind of a weird way to think of it, but that's how it works. So when you give it steam pressure from the cab, it's holding the steam cylinder drains closed, and when you take it away, it opens them up. So, and all the cylinders, internal and external, are connected to the control box or the valve body by these steam lines that are held into the cylinders by banjo bolts. You can see the internal cylinders, the heads of the internal cylinders in there, and you saw the connecting rods for. And you can see the rockers that time the inside valves from the outside valve gear. This is a true inside admission piston valve locomotive too, if you look at the relationship of the radius rod and the combination lever on the valve stem. But I mean, just look at the fasteners on this thing. I mean, this is insane. This is just an exorbitant amount of work. The little oil boxes that have lines going down to the journals, the little oil cups for the rockers, the vacuum pipe, coupling with the turnbuckle. This is just magnificence. It's perfection. It's mechanical perfection in its most explicit sense. When I got the engine, it was in rather bad shape. The boiler looked terrible, the jacketing rather, because someone had decided to paint this with this awful brick red that looked like it was put on with a broom, and it was a horrible attempt at trying to replicate Crimson Lake. So they were trying to go for an LMS period, which honestly I don't think fits these engines at all. And speaking of the prototype, these were designed by Charles Bowen Cook, and they were built between 1913 and 1921. About 130 of these were built for the London Northwestern Railway in that time period. And as far as performance goes, the prototypes were less than amazing. They didn't steam very well. They were pretty fast. They could do a decent turn of speed, but you know, they were under-boilered for the amount of cylinders and their size. So that was their Achilles heel, as it were. This engine, however, is an exception to the rule. This thing makes steam like a demon, and It has 4 radiant superheaters, so this thing, it goes like the clappers. It really does. This thing just, it flies. And it makes steam like nuts. Under here is the mechanical lubricator for the cylinders. I'm not going to open these hatches because they're very, very difficult to open and close. But you get the idea. It's a mechanical oil pump. You have a whistle underneath the running board here. I'll give you a quick cab tour. Let's put the cab roof up real quick. Very gently clean it up. Okay, so here's our cab layout. This is a coal-fired locomotive. You can see the fire door open right here. And obviously starting from right to left, here's your sight glass. You have 2 stop valves here and here for blowing down the glass, for, you know, making sure you can get all the crud out of the fittings if they get loaded up with scale, or also if the gauge glass cracks or the seals blow out, you can shut the steam off to it to prevent a leak. You've got the blowdown valve for the glass right here. This is the mud ring blowdown down here. Here's your bypass from the crosshead-driven feed pump. This is your blower, which is fed from the manifold, which also feeds the whistle and the other auxiliaries on the other side of the cab. Here is the regulator. This is the starting valve for the injector, because this does have an injector. Here is the stop valve on the feed side of the injector, which, you know, is being supplied from the injector itself. This is the water side of things. So here's the clack, or the check valve. So in case this check valve gets hung up for some reason, say you get some dirt underneath the ball or whatever, and it starts blowing water back down through and you're losing water at a fairly fast rate of speed, you can shut this valve and it'll stop the water leak and prevent a fairly dangerous low water situation, which is a very good idea on the part of the builder. You can see the legit Bassett-Lowke pressure gauge there. Next over is the steam that runs the vacuum ejector for the brakes. This does, again, have working vacuum brakes. I'll show you the brake rigging. And the cylinder under there. There's the accumulator tank for the vacuum. This is the bottom valve body of the bypass valve for the pump. And this is the brake valve that will actually control the brakes. This just makes sure you can maintain a consistent vacuum, and this is where you get your actual brake control. And over here is the valve for the steam-operated cylinder cocks. Like I was saying before, you open it to give it steam to keep them shut, and then you shut the valve to take away the steam from the valve body, and that way it opens them. So it's able to overcome that shuttle if there's no steam pressure holding it shut. There's your vacuum gauge. This had to be refaced because the old face was just beat up. It has screw reverse for precision hooking up, or reducing the cutoff, as it were. The brake rigging on the tender is functional as well as the suspension. You can see the brakes flex, I mean not the brakes, the springs flexing there, the leaf springs. The cab has a very nicely done mahogany floor. Underneath the tender fill hatch, you have a hand pump. So this locomotive has 3 ways of getting water into the boiler. We've got an injector over here, which takes a jet of steam from the boiler and accelerates the water at a very high rate of speed through the check valve and into the boiler using Bernoulli's principle. Again, just an equal amount of detail on this side. I decided to name the engine Lord Rothmall because that was the most appealing name to me. I was originally going to go with the class leader's name, which was Sir Gilbert Claughton. It sounded really nice, but the number was rather lackluster. Sir Gilbert Claughton's number was 2222, so I think 650 is a nicer combination, and Lord Rothmall has a very nice sound. It's got a ring to it. It's sinister yet classy and dignified. So that's why I chose that name, Lord Rothmall. So I don't know if it's just kind of Harry Potter sounding or whatever, but you know, I just love the sound of that name. It's very classy. It's very dignified for this engine. Some of you may notice that these lamps are not typical British lamps, they're European lamps. That was my idea. I thought the European lamps would look better on this engine, and in my opinion they do. And also the tender has them, and I have a red one for the rear. These toolboxes open as well. This engine is just a treasure. It is just, it's a marvel. It's a mechanical marvel. And everyone asks me if I intend to steam this. Honestly, I do not, because the engine is so frail because of its age and because of its rarity. I do not want to tempt fate. It is such a beautifully engineered piece of machinery that, God forbid, if anything happened on the track, if it derailed, something like that, it's just, you know, it's too valuable to let something happen to it. So in order to keep it in its pristine state and also to keep it from getting dirty with soot and steam oil, I'm just gonna have her as a display queen, as it were. But she is the epitome of 3.5-inch gauge live steam, in my opinion. I've never seen another 3.5-inch gauge live steam Claughton, and Claughtons in live steam, period, are very scarce, if not non-existent or extinct at all. Well, they are pretty much extinct. There's only one other I know of, and that's in 5-inch gauge. So, I mean, I'm very, very proud to know that I own such a unique and such a rare locomotive. So I figured I would let the rest of the world see this gorgeous piece of engineering. These buffers are sprung as well. They did not miss a beat with this locomotive at all. The lead truck is even sprung. I mean, this thing it's insane. It really is. I am so proud and so overjoyed to have custodianship of this engine. So, I thought everyone would enjoy seeing that. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next installment of my collection when another piece comes along. Take care, everyone.